Well, I closed that window. Hopefully it didn't shut the recording down. All right.
Looks like it's still going. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's get started. I am Teresa Ferguson. I'm the Exec Director of AustinUP, and I am excited about this presentation, and I'm so glad that you all are here for it. It's Startups After 50. This was an event that was supposed to happen during South by in a face-to-face format, but that didn't happen. So we're glad that Jeff and Carole can join us today via Zoom. About our speakers, let's see. Jeff Tidwell has co-founded Next for Me to help people take career transitions in their stride. He began his career with alternative newspapers and then moved online, where he worked in Silicon Valley and New York, overseeing online communities and user experience for E-Trade, WebMD, Oncology.com, Market Tools, Chirp Interactive, and many startups. He's been a featured speaker at Tech Inclusion, Boomer Business Summit, and is the author of Forbes Chronicles of a 50-Plus Entrepreneur. He's also the co-author of Next for Me, yay, a guide to startups for dreamers.
Great, thank you.
And then Carole McManus is co-founder and editor-in-chief at Next for Me. She's a marketing and social media strategist with a history of building some of the most successful online communities on the web, including Yahoo and Baby Center. Her former clients include Frito-Lay, Del Monte, Johnson & Johnson, E-Trade, many more. She is director of digital marketing for CatCon and on the board of directors of the Well, which Wired magazine called the world's most influential online community. So we're very excited to have you today, Carole.
Thank you.
Jeff.
Thank you.
So
thanks for having me.
Take it away.
Great. So, we thought we'd just sort of talk a little bit about what our book covers. It's Next for Me, A Guide to Startups for Dreamers. And really, we're in a time now where there's a lot of widespread unemployment. There's a lot of insecurity and stress around employment, more so than ever. I mean, we were hearing that pre-pandemic, and now we're hearing it much, much more now. So, but we're also seeing that particularly in a certain age group, people are really disengaged based on the rate of change that things are happening, new technologies, things like that, excessive scrutiny, skills gaps. So, we really wanted to kind of address that and get people more comfortable with change and opportunity. And in this book, we're covering a lot of that. And ultimately, what we're doing at Next for Me is we are on a mission to make your next move your best one yet.
Yeah.
Jeff, you want to?
Sure. Yeah.
Take it.
We started our company about 2.5 years ago. First of all, addressing workers that were over 50. We saw all the issues that about ageism and people being pushed out of the workforce, and that caught our attention because some of us were entering that phase and feeling some of that. 2.5 years later, we wrote about the process of starting the company in Forbes over the course of a year, 53 different articles. We said we should now take this in a book. And as you'll see when we go through the book, a lot of it has to do with mindset and how people address change in their lives. So the beauty of self-publishing, as soon as we push the button to publish this book about startups, we said these solutions that we found, these exercises can help anybody who's confronting change in their lives. And now here we are in the middle of this pandemic. Nobody is real certain about employment. And so we took the book, we pulled out much of, that's perfect, Carole, much of the bits out about startups in particular, and publish it again as a book about change for everybody. So you'll see some of that crossover here. But for those in the Austin community where startups are a part of your life, I think you may find some value in some of this. And bear with me, I do have a few slides here that we'll fly through just so you can get a sense of what's inside of the book. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. Let me know if that happens.
Yeah, I see your Slack
Oh,
window.
good. Okay. Yeah, we built a page for today called AustinUP / at the end of Next for Me, and we're sending out digital copies of the book to anybody that wants one or wants to sign up for our newsletters. Okay, something's not on here. Bear with me. Okay, so the thing about working with people you know is that you build some trust in there. And Carole and I have worked together for over 20 years. And as we said, developing online communities and a lot of different capabilities in the world out there, from cancer to people trading stocks to going through the process of having children. So we'll get into that a little bit through this. As last year, Monster did a survey that said that 77% of workers feel threatened in their current employment. And a lot of that has to do with the rate of change and excessive scrutiny and these kinds of things. This was before, was it 30% unemployment that we see as of this morning's numbers. And so we believe that our mission is more relevant than ever. And so we want to be the brand that helps people move through these changes in their lives. And it doesn't have to be a specific industry or whatever. You'll see some of what we go at gets to the core of who you are as a person and how you're going to apply that into your career. So here it is. Dun, 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 dun. That's the animation. Carole, you forgot the sound effect. And so the idea is that it's for dreamers, and we know dreamers has a few definitions these days, but it's for people who are thinking about things in big ways and trying something that might not be the easiest thing in the world to do, because it's hard to start a company, as we really know now. In the book, we segmented it into 3 sections: your philosophical center, fresh perspectives, and tactical things that you might need to stay standing long enough. And here we get into the soul searching of who you are and what do you stand for. And can you define that if you're trying to hire somebody, if you're looking to raise money, if you're just trying to publish a blog, even something as simple as that? What do you stand for? And who are the people that you associate with who support your values as well? And then, real important is, who are you beholden to? Because that can change the whole game for you if you're dependent on people or companies or organizations that don't share your values.
And Jeff, before you move on, actually, I wanted to sort of go back to that, because we had another conversation a couple of weeks ago with our friends at Quarantine Book Club. And, there were a lot of questions about, in this time, in this unprecedented time that we're in right now, how does this sort of relate? And really, this initial part was a huge part of our conversation there, that in this time when we're separated from people and maybe we're unemployed or underemployed or have a lot of time on our hands, this is kind of a really good time to really do that soul searching and really think about what it is you stand for, and who are the people you're associating with, and who are your trusted confidants at this time, that who will be there with you every step of the way. So I just wanted to kind of bring that up, because that was a huge part of that conversation, and I thought that really got to the heart of what we're trying to do, certainly, and our long friendship and our long collaboration has a lot to do with our shared values. So
yeah, you hear every day people saying that by slowing down, I have taken some time to take a look at how I've been living my life. You move so fast through the course of your life that you don't take that time. So with that in place, then you can start having some fun when you're thinking about if you want to start a company or if you're going to make a career change. And to do that, part of the mindset is just keeping an open mind. And so we speak a bit about meditation and how to clear your mind long enough so that you can let possibility in. And some of that we discuss through the lens of visualization, or defining what an ideal scene would look like for you, so that when it comes knocking at your door, you're ready for it. And we're big fans of writing, obviously, and think that writing helps you process things in a way that just typing away or going about things the way you used to do won't expose to you. And if you're a drawer, and even if you're not, sometimes just the physical act of putting pencil to paper or moving post-its around can help you. And same with mapping. We often put the different pieces of our company up on the wall and all the dependencies around that. And then a great exercise to do once you've done that is say, okay, let's put some constraints on that. What if I don't have that $10,000 to do that thing? How can I proceed? And by doing that, putting those constraints on it, it reveals things that you wouldn't have seen otherwise. And one of the great things we always talk about, I happen to have it right here on my desk, is Brian Eno's oblique strategies, which are little cards you can pop out if you're in the midst of a creative struggle or something, and it will say, throw away everything you've done for the last hour and go take a walk, or something like that. So these are some called sleight of hand, perspective sleight of hands, ways to play and fool with the way you've always done things to expose new things. And then all that said, and relevant to this group, is you've got a lot of experience. You've sat in that meeting before. You've seen those office politics happen before. Don't forget that stuff and bring it along with you on this new adventure. And then, some of the obvious things here are taking care of yourself. Be frugal with your money, easy on the dependencies. A hard one for me was do it yourself, because I was, a spoiled corporate worker who had people who would do Photoshop for me or these kinds of things. And those people aren't there if you're starting something new. So you figure it out and you do it yourself. And sort of philosophically, it is about being a hacker. And anybody who's been around engineers or developers knows that they solve problems sometimes by finding workarounds and working with what they have and finding new ways at it. So that's a big part of it and our philosophy. And and here we are publishing. We found that by writing about it in that series in Forbes, that made things very clear for us, because we were writing about what we were doing every day. And then as far as getting a message out into the world, believe it or not, you're a publisher now, and you have to be doing it all the time. If somebody goes looking for you online, what are they going to find? And so we think it's important to be publishing all the time. And, you don't have to be prolific. You don't have to do it, the greatest piece in the world, but get something out there and do it regularly. People will find out who you are. Just quickly, Carole, if you want to speak to this, I'll draw the screen here.
Sure. So what we're working on currently are a series of video interviews and podcasts that we'll be sharing on our social media, as well as on our site and our newsletter. We're pivoting right now from our public events that we've done across the country to more virtual events like this one, looking at new ways to kind of deliver that information to folks who are really hungry for it. And we're also publishing resource guides. We put out a market research report called Understanding the 50+ Worker. And that was really helpful in kind of really understanding what the heart of the matter was, what our audience really was concerned with. We do ongoing market research surveys. Jeff and I both come from market research, as well as many other prior careers. And we're also working with sponsors, and we're producing content, like Jeff said, across a bunch of different platforms and in different ways.
Nice. We built a page. You can sign up. You can get our newsletters and a copy of this book. I'm happy to send it. And now ready for any questions.
So, so Jeff, you know, when you talk about these techniques and things, so you're saying that it's not specifically for starting a new business, it's for doing anything, any kind of...
How to think more expansively about what you're doing or what you're thinking about doing. I think, you know, we can talk to anybody any day, and they've got something that they'd like to do, that they would like to move forward a little bit on, whether it's within an organization, whether it's starting a company, whether it's joining a company, or, you know, it could be family related, or, you know, change in your life and how to get there and be comfortable doing that.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we hear about from people who are in the job market looking for that next job or career move is focus. The ability to focus is so important, because recruiters are hearing from people our age, I can do anything, I can do everything. And so do you have any suggestions on ways to be able to focus, to help people focus?
As a matter of fact, we've put together in this iteration of the book, we've got 19 different exercises that folks can do to really make them reflect back on their career. What were aspects of their previous jobs that they really enjoyed and want to continue to do? What were aspects that they want to kind of push to the side now that they can maybe be a little bit more choosy, or, you know, they're just in a position to start something brand new. So we've gotten really good feedback on those exercises, because it's really, I mean, you got to start somewhere. And sometimes it's just the prospect of the change is just too big. So this really helps to kind of focus you, as you said, like to you know, get down to the meat and potatoes of what your next big thing is going to be.
Mm-hmm.
We were doing an interview last week with a recruiter. I've known her for 25 years. So she'd seen a lot of people go through changes, and she said the biggest thing is that often people over 50 will lead with what they won't do. Well, I won't compute, and I'm not going to work with so-and-so, and I really don't know how this Slack thing works. You know, all the reasons why they don't want to do your job that you're applying for. And so, you know, first begin with that, you know, lead that conversation with being open to new things and saying that, you know, you're willing to try stuff, because a lot of times we get in our own way if we're looking for something new, and you know, the ageism isn't always coming from outside. A lot of it is this bias that is built into us through society through the years, who said, you know, this is these rituals in life you go through. You graduate from college, you get this job, you have the family, then you retire. Well, we all know that's out the window anymore. We're living 20 or 30 years longer. You know, half the population that will be hitting retirement age has less than, what is it, Carole, $40,000 or $50,000?
$50,000, yeah.
You know, which is a simple medical procedure to wipe that out. So we're all going to be working a lot longer. Who knows what this economic downturn is going to do to people? So, you know, you have to find a way to remain relevant and not be always negative about what can come your way.
Good advice. Another question we had, I'm curious, what are the numbers for startups for women over 50, specifically for women?
We've looked into that a little bit. I don't have them at my fingertips, and that these numbers are from pre-pandemic times, but we were seeing record numbers of women entrepreneurs happening. It's still a small number, but it was definitely, increasing since the 70s. And I think this situation we're in right now provides brand new opportunities. I think a lot of what we talk about in the book, being a hacker, doing things yourself, using free or low-cost tools to build yourself a website, to build up your business, are all things that women can glom onto, and maybe things that weren't available to them 10, 15 years ago suddenly now are. And not only are they available, but they're free. The Google suite of products, things like that. Doesn't exactly address the numbers, and I'm happy to follow up after this with some information from an article I did back in the spring. But I think if you're willing to be innovative, and if you're willing to think outside of the box and rejigger the way that you're doing things, I think this could be a time of opportunity after this is all over.
We hear more and more about venture funds that are focused on women or diverse populations, and so that's good news to hear a rumbling of that, but it's still a small percentage of money invested in new companies go to women-founded organizations.
Another question, can you give an example of a good exercise for one to do as they're thinking about what the next step might be? For example, a self-reflection exercise or a drawing exercise?
Mm-hmm. Well, we suggest that you create a set of guiding principles. That is a menu of things that you gauge who you're going to work with, or what is acceptable as far as you going into things. So you set it up with what are your sort of moral core is, what are the values, and maybe one of your values is to be truthful. And so that principle would be that we are always transparent with anybody we deal with, that sort of thing. So you create this list, and when you're going into an interaction with somebody, you've got that checklist, and it might not be a manual physical thing, but you've got it in here, and that helps you make decisions about, should I invest in Facebook because they sell all your personal information or something like that? Does that fit in with your values? And the guiding principle that says we'll only spend money with companies who respect my privacy, for example. There's some other ones too, but.
Mahani, you had another question about what to do, women's 50 startup. If I didn't reflect your question well enough, go ahead and unmute yourself and you can ask it.
But my question is, among women 50 plus startups, what industries, what do you see mostly? Women 50 plus, when they start up a business, what kinds of business have you seen that is more common than not?
A lot of the soft skills, I think, for sure. Restaurants, small business owners making things, creating things, selling on Etsy, things like that. That's a sort of an easy way to kind of ease your way in. I work with a conference, for example, that provides opportunities for in real life interaction for real life small business owners who have in the past only sold online, and this is their opportunity to get together in real life in a marketplace and sell things. And we're looking at reinventing that now in this new time where we can't be together in large gatherings. So, but Yeah, it is true to kind of reinforce like that women do the soft skill kind of small businesses. That's what I've seen. I'm always happy to see, you know, when women break outside of those constraints and stuff. But, you know, as Jeff said, like there's limited, you know, investments going into women-owned businesses. So unfortunately.
Some successful things I've seen are the things that women know best that relate to them, that a male-dominated society has always been trying to create products on their behalf and without really understanding them. So, you know, things related to having children and all of that, you know, we saw that at Baby Center a lot of, you know, what's a changing table that happens for a woman who, you know, the one that was designed by the male didn't quite work because, you know, often in society they didn't take on those chores. So you see things like that happening, or like putting bloody pockets in a pair of pants for a woman. You know, every woman I know wants pockets in her pants, right? And so often they're not put there, and I bet that's because it's, you know, a men designing something that they don't wear.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And you know, we had an opportunity to meet the CEO of Nextdoor at a conference that we went to last year, and it was really great to see leadership from that angle. You know, a product like Nextdoor, it's an opportunity to connect an entire community, of course, but I really saw her leadership in things like they have mitigation efforts for when somebody is about to post something really mean. It, you know, it picks up on the sort of word choice and language being used, and it sets up a little warning, like, are you sure you want to post this? You know, maybe you want to cool down or rethink it. I think like innovations like that definitely kind of reflect female leadership, and that's a great thing to see.
Yeah.
Another question is, so a lot of times if you're an entrepreneur or thinking about an entrepreneurial idea going into business for yourself, it's a solo. But what's your experience when it's a team? The pros and cons?
We love it. I
Yeah.
mean, we trust each other. We've got a history of 20 years of working together. And so you work together that long, you have a much deeper relationship than the superficial stuff that you sometimes have to interact with in a corporate setting where you just met somebody and you have to figure all that stuff out. That takes a long time to know the nuance of personalities and all. And so, you know, with our co-founders, Carole I worked with for 20 years, Drew I worked with for 15 years. We know each other. Yesterday we went through a whole thing where it was about my use of language was cryptic for poor Drew to understand in a requirements document that I wrote. And I tell you, if it had been anybody else, they would have said, you know, how am I supposed to figure this out? This is, you know, cryptic, and could you be a little clearer? You know, Drew laughed. We worked through it. We got it done, and so those sorts of interactions really matter in the long run.
Good.
I wouldn't do it solo. I couldn't. You know, you can't. You know.
Right. And we each bring like our unique skill sets to the table here. You know, Drew's our technical guy, and he makes sure to keep things running on our website and everything. You know, Jeff is coming at this from the CEO angle, and he's making partnerships happen, and you know, he's making investments happen. And you know, I'm coming at this from my background in content creation and market research as well. I write our surveys and things like that. So we each kind of bring our unique thing to it, and that's a big part of, you know, finding a team dynamic that works.
Mm-hmm.
We wrote this book without talking. Literally, it happened inside of a Google Doc, and I think we had one meeting over 6 months specific to the book, where, you know, we just went through every comment that we needed to, and we were done. We went back to our usual format for collaboration. So, highly encourage you to work with people you trust and that you know, and if not, you got a set of guiding principles. See if they fit into that. and that will give you some guidance before you even get started.
Mhm. Another question about how do we get the book? Go over that again.
You sign up on nextforme.com/AustinUP, and we'll send you an electronic book. We also encourage you to buy a book and leave a review on Amazon. But we want people to have it. We want people to have this information. We're about more than just this book. This was just us emptying our head out, and it gave us an opportunity to put some structure around what we're doing, and it gave us a reason to come to organizations like this and talk about the higher mission of what Next for Me is about. So go to that page, or Next for Me on Amazon, and you can find it.
And if you could type that URL in the chat box.
Oh yeah.
Great.
Get it? Okay.
A lot of times at our job fairs, we hear from people who are frustrated in their job search. And so sometimes they're thinking, oh, I can just go start my own business. I don't know what the question is here, but do you encourage that kind of behavior, or yeah, how do you know when it's time to go start your own business?
I've done it about 15 times. I've been involved with young companies about 15 times, so I really don't know much else. But it is not for the weak, and don't kid yourself. It's going to take longer than you ever imagined. It's going to cost more than you ever imagined, and you're alone a lot of the time. Do you have that sort of fortitude? And luckily, I have co-founders that we can share this with, what you're going through. And I just, if you've got that stick to it attitude, then I say go for it. And don't quit your day job, but if you got one, and if you don't, try to get one to keep some money coming through, because either you're going to be asking people for money and you've got a lot to prove to be able to go to somebody and ask them for money, or you've got some savings and that's going to run out before you know it. So there's a lot of risk involved, and it's not for everybody. But if you got it in your soul, then run for it. It's really fun. I just don't know what else I could do at this stage of the game.
We're too independent minded, I think. But I will also say, like, what kind of put us at ease in pursuing this is we've got some great advisors, and they're folks that we really, really trust, and they're at the top of their game in their careers, and being able to go to them and say, here's what we're thinking of doing, what do you think? And having them time and again reinforce that they thought that they think it's a good idea, that they think we were onto something, that really helped kind of cement the thinking that we're onto something, we're doing the right thing.
And that relates to the people in that first part of the book. You know who you stand for, or what you stand for. Who are the people that you surround yourself with? Do they meet your qualifications, and are you willing to listen to them and get their help when you need it? So that's part of the whole startup process, is who's going to be on your side, and what are you willing to give up for that. And people love to help, so it's not horrible. And we've had great careers and met some of the most amazing people who have helped us in our careers as we grew, and then now when we're at this stage. So I'm sure that you've had those similar experiences.
So here we are in the middle of a pandemic. How is that, or if you put on your crystal ball or look ahead in the future, how is that going to affect future opportunities? And what can we do now? If somebody is thinking about doing something new, what can we do now? Pursue.
Well, now's the time to get your stuff together and be ready for when the world does open up again. And it might not, but it doesn't hurt to You know, the Buddhist expression of cleaning the temple, you know, before you start the day, everything gets cleared out. You're ready to move and ready for anything. And so we're doing some of that right now. You know, just as a side psychological thing, I've gone through like 10 boxes that said the 90s. And I threw, you know, 9/10 of that stuff away, you know, so it's just not this psychological burden for me anymore. We're really refining the things that we do. We're doing video interviews, and I swear we're going through such iterations with it so that it's absolutely the best we could do given our resources and that sort of thing. So when we do unleash all of this again, we're going to be at the top of our game as we can be with the resources that we have. And you know, for as a company, I can't think of a better mission to have at this time than to be helping people who are concerned and nervous and wondering about what's next for them than now.
Yeah.
A lot of people are freaked out. It's okay to be freaked out about it.
Mhm.
And Carole and I were talking about this at this book club last week. You know, it is, you can have good days and you should be productive on those good days. But the bad ones are going to come because we've never experienced anything like this before. And so allow yourself that give yourself a break. As
Yeah.
Carole said, you don't have to publish that novel right now.
Right.
Nobody will be angry at you for not getting that out.
Exactly. So, and I'll just say during this time as well, I mean, we've had the opportunity to reach out to our networks and things, and this is the time to do that, and not in a necessarily in a self-interested way, but just in a keeping connected way. You know, how are you doing, or what are you doing today to take care of yourself? You know, the folks in your network, the ones who might be in a position to give you advice, to get you an introduction to that person. But at this point in time, and where we are right now, this is the time to just reach out to them, make sure that they know that you care, that you're thinking about them. So that's one thing that we can be doing, is reaching out to our networks and, you know, letting people know, hey, I thought of you today. And then it also, in terms of going forward, as Jeff said, we're really hopeful and excited about being able to help folks through the inevitable period of change that's going to happen after this. And we take a lot of inspiration from the people who are pivoting right now. You know, there's a lot of businesses out there who things are not going to go back to any sort of normal for them anytime soon, and they're really pivoting, and they're being open to that. They're being open to the change. They're not saying, you know, they're not being rigid about it. So, you know, I'm looking at this across industries, from, you know, restaurants that are turning to takeout only, and they're using their resources to feed the frontline workers. You know, how does that work, and how does that keep their staff employed? Looking at the designer Christian Siriano has been making masks. So he shut down his high-end fashion house, and he's got everybody to work making masks for medical workers, which is amazing. And, you know, the way that he's funding that is he's got, you know, high-end clients, and they're helping him. They're supporting him in that way. So I think we really need to be open to new ways of doing things, and this is not a time to be rigid. This is the time to be open-minded.
And if you want the world to support what you're doing when it's time to do it again, who are you, and how is that represented online? If I'm looking at Carole to do something in the future, what do I find when I do a search for her online? So we're also talking about, remember blogs? Start writing, everybody. You know, put something out there that reflects what's interesting to you, what you care about, what you want to do. It won't be perfect. You know, you should have seen some of those Forbes articles. They were hopscotching all over the place. But as soon as I published it, man, I went in there and cleaned that up, because I knew somebody else would be looking at that. So what are people going to find if they go looking for you about who you
Yeah,
are
so,
and what you know about and all that?
no, it's fine. I want to make sure to keep going.
It's
So,
fine, Susie. It's fine.
We'll just mute Susie for a little bit there. There was another question from Bill. And Bill, feel free to unmute yourself if I'm not sure I quite understand. You're talking about if you have an idea, but you need to be cautious because maybe you're older. Next isn't necessarily next. That's an intriguing statement, Bill. So what is the question? The earlier opportunities for 20-year-olds are gone? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not following that either.
Yeah.
To everyone. Yes. Oh, he's being sarcastic.
Oh.
Okay.
Sarcastic in chat.
Okay.
Well, but something he said, that it is different, because of age, because maybe because you've been out there producing things and having different jobs and, personalities online, there is a lot about you out there that maybe isn't focused toward what you want to do in the future. So that might be something that we need to do. Is to
I'm trying to
yeah.
Here's a couple of things, related to age and starting this stuff, or even how people address you in the marketplace. It is, okay, that young person doesn't have a family. They, will not be dropping out to take care of their parents. They'll, we can work them over the weekends without any trouble. And then on the flip side of that is, older people get sicker more frequently. They'll have these burdens on them. They are restrictive in other ways about how you're going to get along with that younger crowd. So, so having that defense of doing your own thing means that you don't have to confront some of that, at least at an interview, but you will have to deal with it in other ways if you're looking to raise money for your venture and the VC funds, are going for the 20-year-old white boys out of Princeton or whatever, so you're going to be dealing with some of the dynamics around age. So like my friend said, I was the worst employee ever, right? Which means that, that he wasn't anybody you wanted to have to work with day in and day out. He's really good at what he does, but it was better off when he was doing it for himself, when he was running his own show. And then if there's a problem with the way things are getting done, it's his fault, or it's his responsibility to make that better. So you get some wisdom over time, and you can apply that when you're starting something new.
And I'll also say, what we found, and this is obviously pre-pandemic information, but, we were seeing lots of opportunities for older workers in a consulting capacity, right? Mm-hmm. So whereas a company might put somebody through the ringer in the interview process and not hire them because they had a few wrinkles or a few gray hairs, on the flip side, when they needed to bring somebody in for a particular project, and they needed somebody who was going to get up to speed quickly and be able to deliver something in a timely way, they were totally open to hiring older workers. And, pre-Zoom, you couldn't see if somebody had crow's feet or a few gray hairs. And that ageism thing started to dissipate a little bit when it came to the world of consulting. So, obviously not every career translates to that, but I did see some encouraging statistics and information and anecdotes around that.
Yeah.
No more questions? from the audience? It'll be interesting to see how we come out of this, you know, and
Yeah.
but I just have belief that there will be a lot of creative ideas out there.
Mhm.
Because I'm sure you all think this, you know, maybe you think this way too, is that I don't want to necessarily go back to the way it was. So I'm
Right.
counting on some new ideas
Right.
to come out
Right.
of this. And it could
Yeah.
be new, those
Yeah.
ideas. And more people will be working from home. I think Bill
Mhm.
mentioned that those opportunities will be there. And maybe
Mhm.
that will help level the playing field for older workers.
Mhm.
I have a
I hope
question
so.
for everybody else. What do you have a startup that you're interested in starting, and what is it? Unmute. Tell us all about it, or what you're doing currently. There's Susie.
Here, Susie, let me unmute you. There you go. Go ahead.
Okay,
Hi,
I'm a
Susie.
psychotherapist in private practice.
Uh-huh.
I'm glad you mentioned, Jeff, cancer support. I'm also living with cancer. And so I'll probably never be likely to sit face to face with a client again. I'm not a big fan of the video, but it's what we're doing right now.
Mhm.
So I'm trying to think of this as an opportunity, assuming that I survive the cancer and my health allows, to that list you gave, just do what I want to do with who I want to do it with. And the only way I know how to do that so far, and this might be old information, is that you have to pay a lot of money to get on the front page of Google. Is that still true? Like if I just want to do, for example, clinical hypnosis with private pay people,
Yeah.
that can pay me online. I don't know how to do all that yet, but I'm sure it's learnable. Does that mean I have to spend a whole lot of money on the front end marketing to be in competition with all the other people that have already been doing this telemedicine for years?
Not entirely. Okay. Google changes the way results show up all the time.
Mhm.
And one of the factors that they weigh is how many times are you referenced online,
Mhm.
that point to if you have a website, for example.
Mhm.
And so that's where the publishing comes in, and forming a network with people who do what you do. Your colleague and down the road has a blog, and you promote her articles and she promotes yours. That cross-linking helps in the algorithm that says
Mhm.
when you're going to show up for whatever, Austin psychotherapist. So there's plenty you can do on your own that doesn't cost any money,
Mhm.
and it mostly revolves around publishing.
Okay.
And that's across different platforms for sure.
Mhm.
And being open to the social where you see, we always encourage people to go where your audience is. So it's not necessarily, you're having to start a TikTok or something. That's ridiculous.
Mhm.
But for who your particular potential patients are, meet them where they are. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn a
Mhm.
lot, obviously, because there's a synergy on LinkedIn for what we're doing and what we're putting out there. So
Historically, I've resisted doing that because the little bit I did of that when that stuff all started, I was just getting bombarded by essentially strangers, people who want to network with me because I'm an established therapist who's been around for decades. And so it just got too much for me. And now, unfortunately, a lot of people in my age range have retired, the people who are my people.
Right.
So anyway, I'm just wanting to figure all that out and not have too many of those bad days where I feel like, oh my gosh, I'll never be able to generate income again.
Yeah, there's something about writing that's magic,
Mhm.
and there is You talk about your network aging out. We believe that networking is a lifelong endeavor. And it can't always be transactional, and it shouldn't be, but it should be a fine exchange between people who have a similar interest. Another one of our advisors, Karen Wickery, wrote a book called, what's it called, Carole? It's about networking for introverts.
Yeah, networking for introverts, yeah.
And so she describes in that book, I'll post the link here, you know, that you shouldn't expect something in return when you're first developing this relationship with somebody who's a pro, or if you're going into a Facebook group of people who might need your services. You should be there to be useful and helpful and contribute to the dialogue. And over time, that expression of help and helping people along the way is respected. And so if the time does come when you need their help, you have been sending them articles that are relevant to their interests that you come across. You've invited them to this or that sort of thing. So, you know, that's part of your job, is to develop relationships that will build your business.
And I had the name wrong. It's taking the work out of networking, and the subtitle is networking for introverts. So it's really painless ways of keeping those connections going. And I posted a link to our website, which featured an interview with her and links to her book and more information.
Yeah, my since I've been in business for myself, which is 20 some years now, my number one marketing strategy has been just do lots of presentations, just do workshops, just show up and talk to people, and that just brings people to you. Well, I'm not going to be able to be doing that anymore except on a screen. And anyway, I'm trying to rethink it all. And
we all are.
Yeah. And I'd like to think that, you know, age and experience in this particular situation is to our advantage, right? I mean, we've all been through a lot in our lives, and we know that this too shall pass, one way or another. And you know, that at some point things are going to work out. You know, how they work out, we got to learn to adjust, make our adjustments, and learn to live with a new normal. So
the new normal. Mahani, did you?
Thank you.
I do. I have a question. So I have about 12 to 15 years in advertising. And in the past 4 years, I have been connecting women through stories. And I've been thinking of marrying the two, advertising and stories, to do story marketing. And I've been thinking of creating an online course. My target would be women 45 and up that are starting a business. My question is, and I know I'm very conscious of the fact that I'm 65. How old, I mean, is that too old for somebody in her 40s would want to learn from?
Not if they're smart.
Yeah.
You don't want students that aren't smart. No. No, I don't think so. I mean, what can you show success at what you're teaching people? Can you show them experiences that you have had something to do with that made a difference because of storytelling? Nice. And start there, you know. Start writing about what you do. You know, I'll be honest with you. You know, I call it the coaching economy. Many people our age say, "I'm going to be a coach now because I've got all this experience," right? And they'll write their ebook, and they will invest in a website and course software to make their things. But what they don't do is create that network around them, create a body of information that says, this is what I do, this is who I am, these are the things, so that when somebody does come to you because they heard something about your course, there's plenty to find out about you. And so, you know, I would begin there if I were you, and you know, broaden your network. You're in Austin, is that right?
Yes, I'm
Everybody, I guess you're all in Austin, right?
Mhm.
Except us. Yeah. So, you know, there's organizations. It's a really networked city in a lot of ways that way. And so, you know, begin at home. You can get a little more intimate with people, even though distance is an issue right now. But I would do that.
I hear you. Thank you. Because it is actually the big picture. It's not just that video and how I'm looking at that particular day on the video. It's everything else and as you were saying, publishing blogs. Right. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. We'll wrap it up here in a second. One person, I think Bill mentioned podcasts. Jeff, Carole, what's your thought about podcasts? Is that something that you have to do to check the box?
It's definitely worthwhile, and we certainly put things out in podcast format, and it's something, it's an odd time right now. Lots of people are doing podcasts. I heard that Amazon had sold out of the special microphones that a lot of podcasters use because everyone decided to start their own podcast during the pandemic. However, I do notice the podcasts that I like have become this wonderful way of networking with others and getting the word out about you. So I have a podcast. I'm going to invite you to be on my podcast as a guest. That somebody else who has a podcast hears that, they invite me, we all invite each other, and it's basically cross-pollinating in a way that's unique to the podcasting world, certainly, and the audience specifically for podcasts, which is me. But what do you think, Jeff?
Yeah, it's another piece of content out in the world that people will find if they're looking for you, that will give them a deeper picture of who you are and what you know about and why you're good at what you do. Our co-founder had one of the first podcasts in the world. He's in the Podcasting Hall of Fame. So we're believers in it. Michael Rolnick, who is in here, worked with Cadence 13, which is one of the big podcasting networks now, Deepak Chopra and all kinds of people like that. It's happening. And, you know, a lot of people were listening to them in their commutes, not so much anymore, but they're still growing. And if you've got something to say, what the heck, you know, call your buddy and record it, get a transcript of that, which is unbelievably affordable these days. It's like $2 for a half an hour of transcription. You got a blog post, you've got a podcast, you've got a piece of audio that you can put all over the place. Suddenly you're a content machine, and people have a better chance of finding you and knowing what you're good at. Mm-hmm. Always be publishing. Oof, oof.
Yeah, and new content, that's another way to attract Google juice. You were talking about that too. So thank you very much, Jeff.
Hey.
And Carole.
Thanks for having us.
Pleasure. So let me close again. Our organization is AustinUP. You can find out more about us at AustinUP, all one word, .org. And with that, I'll end the meeting, and thank you very much. We'll have more events like this, so please check our website for updates. All right?
Thank you, Teresa, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Coming.
Thanks.
Really great. Ciao.